Welcome to FocalPoint. One question, one answer, focused on issues that concern our island. Please introduce yourself to the community. Tell us about who you are, where you came from, your background, whatever it is you'd like the community to know about Nick Colosi.
I'm Nick Colosi. I grew up in Philadelphia, in South Philadelphia. Went to medical school in St. Louis, stayed there about 40 years, and then eventually came here to retire.
So, Philadelphia, South Philadelphia.
Yes.
Anything
South Philadelphia. If you're in my age group, you may remember Dick Clark and American Bandstand. That was my neighborhood. And on occasion, I was on American Bandstand.
Is that right? You went down and you danced?
Yes. It was my neighborhood. It was what all the kids did.
Well, that's an amazing piece of background information. So tell me how you get from South Philly and American Bandstand to university. What school did you go to?
St. Louis University. I went to college in Philadelphia, then went to medical school in St. Louis University, went back to Philadelphia to the University of Pennsylvania for my research fellowships, and then went back to St. Louis, and I was on the faculty for both St. Louis University and Washington University.
Okay, so you're a professor as well.
Yes, I taught at both universities and both as clinical. At St. Louis University at one point I was director of residency training, also as director of laser surgery, and I am now retired as emeritus professor from both universities.
So you're an MD?
Yes.
And I also understand that you have military service in your background? Yes.
I was in the Navy for 34 years, 9 months, 27 days, and a few hours.
But who's counting?
Who's counting?
So you stayed stateside, or you were deployed, or?
After medical school, because I was on Navy scholarship for 2 years in medical school, and then I was on active duty for 5 years. Then I went back to the reserves. The Navy used me bouncing between active duty and reserves. They activated me for Desert Storm, they activated me for some other events, but the biggest thing they did is use me as a troubleshooter in that units that were having problems in various ways, people just not doing their job, or people that were passed over for promotion and not doing their job, they would put me on active duty, send me to the unit, and with the authority to ask anything, talk to anybody, and look at anything. And then my job was to report back to my boss, an admiral, of who I thought was the problem, what I thought the problem was, and how to fix the problem.
So you have vast experience troubleshooting and solving problems for the Navy.
That was their main use.
I would think that skill set would be very useful in our local community.
It was very interesting in that, unfortunately, I was in the Navy 34 years, but 25 years of those I spent with the Marines.
Oh, wow.
And it was a point that when I was with my units that I was assigned to, it was a typical military thing. But when I would be activated as a troubleshooter, I was the person no one wanted to see.
Oh, very good. So tell me about how you came to the island. How do you get from Philadelphia and around traveling with the Navy to Potter Island?
With the Navy, I have been practically everywhere except Africa and Antarctica. I avoided Africa. As a medical officer, there were too many diseases I didn't want to deal with. One of the most interesting things with Navy is I wear the Navy Arctic ribbon, which is extremely rare in that we were on a NATO exercise and we were in the field for 3 weeks. And at the last evening when we were wrapping things up, my chief comes up to me and informs me that if we can stay above the Arctic Circle, living literally off the land, no hotels, nothing of this, we would get the Arctic ribbon. So I went to the general I was working for and asked permission to stay one more day, and he said, well, you must volunteer, you can't ask anybody, and I can't support you. And a group of us did, and we wear an unusual medal.
That's amazing.
So,
and I think I must say thank you for your service, your long and dedicated service. So let me ask you about your community activity. I know you from events on the island, but tell me about you and your family and the things that you do in Corpus Christi.
Okay. In Corpus, when we got here, I had been Navy League in St. Louis and president of the Navy League chapter there, two rotations. When I came here, I was approached, and I've been president of the Corpus Christi Council Navy League. In conjunction with that, I'm on the Naval Air Station Base Advisory Committee, which is a group of civilians who the Navy has requested to act as advisors, literally a liaison on how to live together. I became active with Corpus Christi Live, which is a music all-volunteer group that we bring 5 to 6 world-class musicians to town. I had been involved in that type activities where I lived in St. Louis, so that was just something to do, and eventually got to be president of that, which is an absolutely wonderful, fun job, and obviously a great ego trip to introduce the musicians. I got involved with that. I got involved with politics on the island, with the Political Action Committee, and pretty much get in things with that. It's fun things to do. It's fun. It gives something back to the community that I love being in. This is paradise, so I give my little bit back to make it a better paradise.
So now you've put yourself forward as a candidate for the POA board. So now you're getting ready to head into the rough and tumble debate going
Yes.
on the island over all things homeowners. So
When I was young, I was very active politically when I lived in St. Louis. In that I was president of the Medical Society, I was on city committees and so forth. I've testified before Congress on drug issues and Medicare issues and insurance issues. Eventually, when I retired, I got out of that. And when I was here, I was quite happy in that I had my piece of the island, and that was happy. Until it got to the point that I had questions. The biggest one that started it was the community center. And that when we heard about that, and I said, you can't, first off, you don't put a multi-million-dollar building on city property. The city says, it's a beautiful building, thank you very much, and it's gone. No one asked us to build it. No one asked us to spend the money on an architect. And I said, that's wrong. That's not how you spend your money. When you start looking for things, then you find more and more and more problems. And sending a letter, making phone calls got absolutely nowhere. Attending meetings got nowhere. And so you have to jump into it and just say, put it on the board so I have a voice, and you can't tell me to be quiet.
thank you for taking the time to address this important issue.
Starry, starry night.